Don't mind me, just taking in a little view here. Today I'm here uptown, actually, uptown in Manhattan, to do another installment of influential women here in New York City. Very important stories that need to be told. Focusing on uptown. We're going to talk about Harlem, we're going to talk about the Bronx, we're going to talk about here in Inwood and Washington Heights. It's going to be a great video. Beautiful view here of the Hudson River, which I've talked about in lots of videos. You can watch all those. But before we start, Eric, how you doing?
Can we talk about this freezing wind?
It is cold, baby. It's biting cold, but we're gonna brave it for you guys. That being said, check out the Patreon. Helps buy us hand warmer packets that we're carrying around in our pockets. Also there's extras on there, so don't think you're not getting anything in return for it. And like and subscribe. I'm sure you'll like and subscribe. You'll like the video, so just go ahead and like and subscribe. It helps to bump us in the analytics, baby. Ahead of all those other videos where people are freezing their booties off. But Eric, what do you think, man? Should we just start this thing? I don't really want to ramble too much.
Let's get moving.
Let's go. A lot of times New York provides the fertile ground for artists and dreamers to come here and kind of just take off doing what they were meant to do. I'm actually here at 108 West 131st Street. This was the home of Zora Neale Hurston. Now, Zora Neale Hurston grew up the fifth of 8 children in Eatonville, Florida, which, a little trivia, was actually the first ever black incorporated municipality in the United States. When her mom died when she was 13, it kind of threw the family into tumult. It's a nice little word for you. So much so that she left home and actually toured as a traveling actor. She bounced around. She ended up going to Howard University, got her associates there, helped start the Hilltop newspapers, continued to bounce around, ended up here in New York in the 1920s, where she enrolled at Barnard College as one of the first ever black students there. Kind of interesting. She eventually went into studying anthropology, but also began writing and writing and writing and writing. She became friends with other people here who were in Harlem at the time, part of the Harlem Renaissance. I've covered that in the Harlem video. You can watch that one. But people like Langston Hughes, who, not for nothing, was also not from New York. He moved here as well. It's funny, not to digress, but people always like to point out that, I wasn't born in New York or whatever, but you know what? Neither were a lot of people. You don't like people who weren't born in New York? Well, then you can take back the Brooklyn Bridge, take back the United States of America, Alexander Hamilton. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to digress. Can you tell that I wish I grew up in New York, Eric?
Yes, I can.
All right. Anyways, let's keep moving. So Zora Neale Hurston lived at this building here. She was an incredible talent and a huge personality. She also went into Columbia University and studied anthropology, which is kind of cool. She applied it into her studies and into her also to her work. She actually even worked under the Works Progress Administration. She got a grant under the Works Progress Administration documenting the experience of people in Florida. She did lots of different things around that. She also wrote the book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, on a trip to Haiti that she took. Their Eyes Were Watching God is an incredible, incredible book. Eric, have you ever read it?
I have not.
There's a really great line in there to start chapter 3 that says, there are years that ask questions and years that answer. That's kind of a cool line, right? It's like it reminds you, as many as days can pile up, you feel like crap, you feel good, you feel whatever. That could just be one stop along the way, and you're putting a question together, and then you answer that question later on, and then more questions come up. I don't know, I think that's great. Really great book, but she got a lot of flack for it, criticized by a lot of authors, and even black authors at the time, who said she wasn't making statements enough. She wasn't taking positions on the issues of the day, but her take was that she was trying to humanize black people and black women specifically, which before then were not. What's interesting is that in her lifetime, she didn't achieve mainstream success. She struggled very, very much to maintain mainstream success. I know what that's like, but when she died later on, she actually died in poverty in Florida. She went back to Florida and died in poverty in Florida, which is tragic for, one of the best authors of the 20th century. Basically died, sitting at a Waffle House telling people about her years in New York. I know what that's like.
Careful, Tom.
I'll be there too, I'm sure. Anyways, after she died, Alice Walker, who wrote The Color Purple, rediscovered her work, wrote this amazing essay about her, and kind of reignited the interest in Zora Neale Hurston's writings. Really, really amazing talent. She actually has a great quote about herself that kind of shows her personality. She says, and I quote, "When I set my hat at a certain angle and sauntered down 7th Avenue, Harlem City, Feeling as snooty as the lions in front of the 42nd Street Library, the cosmic Zora emerges. I belong to no race or time. I am the eternal feminine with its string of beads. Yeah. Pretty cool, huh? All right, well, I think it's great. Great book. She's really worth checking out and looking into. Book, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Incredible story. But yeah. Anyways, Eric, what do you think? Should we keep moving?
Let's go.
Let's go. New York oftentimes provides people who are escaping something from a different country or city a refuge and a place where they can further develop their talents. I'm actually here at St. Anne's Episcopal here. This is 140th Street and St. Anne's in the Bronx, and this is La Lupe Way. This is the story of one of those women. Her name was La Lupe. That's Guadalupe Victoria Yoli Raymond from Cuba, actually. Now, her story is actually that she was born in a tiny little town called Santiago de Cuba, and she actually was like, I'm gonna go to the big city, you know, and back there is La Habana, right? So she actually skipped school in her teens and went and entered a singing contest and won it. Pretty cool, right? So she stays in Havana and she starts, you know, working at La Red, there's a big nightclub there, and gets the attention of people like Ernest Hemingway, and a lot of people were passing through. Becomes kind of like a celebrity, and what she was becoming famous for was obviously her voice and her soul, but also her performance. This woman just lost her mind whenever she was so present with all of her songs. She would tear her clothes off, she would rip her hair out, she would yell obscenities, and just completely lose it. She would have gotten along great with my ex, huh? Anyways, she becomes kind of a celebrity in Cuba, but the old Cuban Revolution happens in the late 50s, transition in the early 60s. You remember that old thing, right, Eric?
I was not around for the Cuban Revolution.
I'm sure you weren't, or so that's what you want everyone to believe. But anyways, she has troubles with the new regime, or whatever you want to call it, Castro. Actually, they say he was kind of intimidated by her popularity and her freedom, etc. So he kind of was telling her to rein it in a little bit, and she's like, no thanks. So she bails because in the eyes of the leadership in Cuba, she had become too much of a leader. She couldn't be on TV. She couldn't be around because she was too much of a leader, which is kind of the same reason I'm not on TV, right? Anyways, her big thing was her performance. She was magnetizing. Magnetizing, is that a thing? She had a magnetism to her. You had to watch her. That was the amazing thing about her. She just stepped on a stage and all eyes were on her, and that's what's important as a performer. You know, we all strive to kind of be that, and it's very difficult to kind of, okay, I get it, all right, very funny. But 1962, she leaves, briefly stops in Mexico, and then someone tells her about going to New York, baby. Where does every outcast go? They come here. So she comes here and she hits the ground running. She immediately gets a buzz because of her singing, and she gets the attention of a man named Tito Puente. You guys know who he is, right? Oye, como va? That guy? Huh? Sorry about that. But yeah, he picks her up and they start working together. They release a few albums and she becomes the face of this new movement called salsa. It was a combination of Puerto Rican beats, Cuban beats, all kinds of different musics, all molded into one, and you know, just catches fire here. They called her the Queen of Latin Soul. She takes off and problems happen. Problems start coming. They say she got into drugs, but it's not clear. Her family and descendants deny it, but she started acting erratic. She was a little more unreliable. So Tito Puente actually turns his attentions to Celia Cruz, who you guys may know, Azúcar, that one. She turned it to her, and they kind of keep on going, and La Lupe is kind of left on her own. She continues her solo career. She actually goes to Puerto Rico for a bit, tries to revive her career there, but she continues to be more and more erratic, and she runs into some bad luck. But before then, she was the face of Latin American music here in salsa as well. She was on Dick Cavett's show a couple times. You guys should check out those clips. They're really entertaining. She's incredibly charismatic. She brought him cookies. She gets him to take his shirt off and dance with her. It's crazy. So fun to watch. Here's me plugging the Dick Cavett show. Everyone watch the Dick Cavett show, you know, Monday nights at 7 on WNBC. No, but they are worth looking up. You can watch them on YouTube, huh? Same, me and Dick Cavett on the same platform. Oh boy, but she's very famous for singing songs like Que te pedí was one of her famous ones. It's the one that goes, Que te pedí, tú no puedes al mundo decir. That was pretty good. Anyways, that was pretty good, right, Eric?
Yes, Tom, it was pretty good.
Thanks. But yeah, she ran into some bad luck at the end of her life. She was running into financial trouble. She stopped singing. She actually had a serious accident and hurt her back. She couldn't move around as much. She then had a stroke. Her apartment caught on fire, and then she ended up dying of a heart attack at 55 years old. Very sad. So we're here at La Lupe Way, and most people would walk by the street sign and not know who it's referring to, but this woman influenced all the mothers and fathers of the salsa movement. She influenced pop stars all over the world today. Her performance and her charisma is something to behold. So you do yourself a favor and look into some of her videos and songs. But this is La Lupe Way here in the Bronx, commemorating, a very famous New York citizen. All right, Eric, I'm freezing, man. It's starting to get cold. Should we keep moving? Let's go. So sometimes New York rewards people who just kind of dive into doing what they love and what comes most naturally to them. I'm here on 122nd Street, which, by the way, has some beautiful brownstones, which is very typical in New York, called brownstones because of the sandstone that was mined in Connecticut, New Jersey, from the first quarter of the 1800s to the mid to late 1800s. Became very typical of upper middle class housing. You knew that already. But I'm actually at 152 West 122nd Street because this was the home of Clara Hale. Clara Hale was a woman who was widowed at 27 years old, and she basically opened a home. Well, first she started taking care of her children who she was left with, and she eventually opened her doors to other children from the neighborhood as well because she just loved taking care of children. At one point she had fostered 40 kids from the 1940s to the 1960s, 40 different foster children. That's a lot. By the way, keep in mind, it's not easy taking care of that many kids, obviously. I mean, most of us pray we don't get sat next to a child on an airplane. This woman was taking kids in, taking kids who were orphans in, taking kids with parents who had drug problems in. But as it continued, she opened her doors to more and more people in the community. For example, in 1969, her daughter, Lorraine, brought in a mother with her child who were saddled with drug addiction from the mother. She took them in. She opened her doors to more people that way. In 1970, she officially opened the Hale House, which was located here for many years. The Hale House was basically a nonprofit, and it was giving free care to children, parents, and also helping homeless children find parents as well. And this was a big deal. I mean, she would actually go out looking for the best family for these children, not just any family. I mean, a good family is hard to find. As any of you who have grown up, period, know, it's hard to find. So she did all that due diligence, did the hard work to do that. And she continued to expand her operations even into the 1970s when she was already in her 70s. In 1975, she got another advanced child care license, already well into her 70s. And I can tell you, my aunts in their 70s are all losing licenses, if anything. But this woman was putting in the work to get new licenses, which is pretty amazing. She continued her work here and actually helped over 1,000 children and infants and babies here from this little home here, and then left her the organization to her daughter. She was always getting praise, and people were telling her how great she was, and in response she would just say, "I'm not an American hero, I'm just a person who loves children," which shows you that all you got to do is just dive in and just focus on the thing that you love and that comes naturally to you, and then any accolades and things are just extra. And I'm not talking about in the Gen Z so extra type of way. I'm talking about in in just icing on the cake type way. There's a nice metaphor for you. But unfortunately, the Hale House ran into financial problems in the early 2000s, and it's had to shut its doors since here. Anyways, a pretty little building, a little statue there. What do you think, Eric? Should we keep moving?
Get out of here.
Let's do it. So, New York is also the setting for people really kind of risking it all and, just going for broke. And I'm here in Fort Tryon Park to talk about this woman named Margaret Corbin. Actually right next to the plaque that marks, approximately the site of where she kind of made a name for herself. So this woman had grown up seeing some crud. She'd actually been orphaned at an early age because her parents, her mom was captured and her dad was killed in a Native American attack in Pennsylvania. She then comes here with her husband later on in life to fight in the war for independence. He wanted to fight, so she's like, screw it, I'll come with him. You know, a couple that has hobbies together stays together, I guess. Some couples go to hockey games. This couple, you know, fights for independence from monarchy. But they come here, and she actually takes his side on November 16, 1776, in the battle here of Fort Washington, where he is manning a cannon. And she's standing next to him, helping him, and he actually gets shot down and killed. She's watching her husband, her lovely, amazing husband, you know, and she just continues to fight. She continues to fight. I don't know, maybe she was mad at him. Maybe he had told her to relax too many times while they were fighting or something, but she found the strength to just continue to fight, and she kept manning the cannon by herself. Her husband's lying dead. For a couple hours she fights until she's hit herself with gunfire, and she falls. She's eventually captured, but she eventually survives the war into the new country. When she is actually crippled, unfortunately, she's not able to use her arm, but she joins the Corps of Invalids in the military, which is a little on the nose, but it was a real thing. She eventually goes to West Point and is stationed there. She gets half of a soldier's pension, even though she wasn't technically a soldier, which, half is still pretty insulting, but she got something at least, which is more than a lot of women could say back then. During the battle, they faced incredibly terrible odds. There was like 2,900 Continental Army troops and about 8,000 British and Hessian troops, kind of pushing all the Continental Army out of New York. I've talked about the Battle of Long Island in the Brooklyn Heights video. You can watch that one. There you go, baby. But I've talked about it all, in Morris Jumel Mansion as another one. But they were basically being pushed out of New York, so this became the headquarters for the British during the War of Independence. And then they came back in 1783 and retook it. But she was there, fighting. Even though the odds were insurmountable, she fought and watched her husband die next to her while she was fighting. And so to commemorate that strength and resilience of Captain Molly, as she was called later on in her life, they put this little plaque here, which is pretty cool, What did you think, Eric? Do you know about this story?
I have no idea. I don't even know where we are, Tom.
Yeah, we'll put up a tiny map here, insert map here. But no, she actually was buried, and then they exhumed her corpse and buried it at West Point, which is kind of a weird tradition, I guess, to take a dead body out of the ground and put it somewhere else. But I guess it's important to some people. But yeah, this is the entrance to the Margaret Corbin Drive or Parkway or whatever it's called, and it through Fort Tryon Park, which is actually a pretty cool park. Maybe one day I'll do a video here. Okay, well, that's pretty much it, guys. Gonna move on to the next spot. Let's go. I'm freezing. All right, guys. Well, we made it to the end. Look at us. Here we are. Beautiful sunset. Finished. We got to talk about, Margaret Corbin, the amazing story of Margaret Corbin. We talked about Zora Neale Hurston, the amazing author who lived up here. We talked about Clara Hale, Mother Hale. And we talked about La Lupe. Really great stories, a nice little variety, diverse tales, if you will. Eric, what'd you think of those? They were
Your hands have not gotten any warmer.
No, they haven't gotten any warmer. It's actually gotten colder. It doesn't help that we shot both the intro and outro at the same time. A little behind the veil, how the sausage is made. But that was a pretty interesting little video. Now you can go enjoy those stories, talk about them with your friends from can't see in the morning till can't see at night. That was a Zora Neale Hurston quote. That's how she described it, all day. Anyways, all right, well, we did it. Guys, check out the Patreon, please. Thing of supporting, there's extras on there, and that's how we fund these things, baby. Gonna try to spring for a new layer to add on under here. I could probably helps to zip it up as well, but, continuity. But also to like and subscribe. That's a huge help. But, anyways, Eric, what do you think, man? Should we just get the hell out of here, go get somewhere, anywhere, warm?
Yeah.
All right.
Good idea.
Guys, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Totes appreciate, as the kids say. See y'all later.